what to look for in a trim folder, and these are some of the things that, you know, and some of this is just me personally, and but a lot of guys, this is some of the questions that I get day in and day out as a sales rep, and with a lot of customers that I talk to, and you know, they want to know what service is like, you know, parts availability, ease of use of the machine, accuracy and speed, safety, consistency, and all these things. So we'll follow through with each one of these. Service to me was always something that was very vital to what was, you know, part of what I wanted as a roll former. I like to be able to, if I have a problem with my machine, because at the end of the day, they're all machines. There's a lot of very good machines out there, and I hope I don't come across as, you know, partial to variable bend. I mean, obviously I sell them, and I owned a variable bend at one time, and so, you know, I love that machine, and I had a very good relationship with Hershey's, and service was one thing that I wanted. When I went into this, I wanted to know that I would get the absolute best service in the market, and that was one thing that I could never complain about them. I always got very, very good service from them, and that's what as a manufacturer, that's what I wanted. Also parts availability, because like I said, these are all man-made machines. Sooner or later, they're going to break down, and we don't like to think about that, but that's just what we have when we're dealing with a lot of equipment and a lot of moving parts. Parts availability. That was another thing that I wanted to make sure that, you know, that we had, and that's something that clients you know, ask me about all the time, and that's something that we need to look for is, you know, how quick can we get parts, and you know, is it something that, are we going to wait, you know, a week or 2 weeks, or is it going to be a couple days? And so for the most part, a lot of companies can get you parts overnighted, and that's what you want to look for, something that you can get parts as quick as possible, because downtime is lost money, in my opinion. And ease of use, you know, how user friendly is the machine? You know, is the software very user friendly? And from one machine to the next, it's always all going to change. And there's a lot of machines out there, and for the most part, most of them are designed very close to each other. There's going to be some differences in them, but that's the one thing that you want to do, something that you can design different types of trim real easy. You don't want to be spending a whole lot of time designing trim, and you want to be actually bending trim instead of designing trim. And accuracy and speed, that's something that I wanted to make sure, because as a contractor, before I went into roll forming, there was one thing that I couldn't stand, and that's if I bought product from a company, and you can get the best panels in the world, but if you do not get a good piece of trim, it just messes up the whole thing. And so I wanted something that was accurate. I wanted my trim to be, you know, precise. And I know I'm super picky when it comes to construction and different things like that. I can pick a lot of things apart, and that was one thing that I was looking for specifically, was accuracy on the trim, on the final product, and speed. Speed is, you know, a lot of guys, they're neither here nor there. I'm the type of guy, I want to get as much done as quick as possible and get out the best product as possible. So that's kind of a subject that some guys want to slow it down. They want to make sure that they're, you know, but to me, I was always kind of the guy that I wanted to, you know, really get it out. And safety is another big feature. I know some guys that'll get a new machine and they'll turn their safety features off, and blows my mind, but you know, it is what it is, and you can't tell them what to do once it hits their floor. So I know of guys that taking their fingers off. We had one of our clients here just a couple months ago, and we got a call and they said, hey, you know, what can we do to get these safety features turned back on? I'm like, well, if you'd have just left them on in the first place after we left, you know, you wouldn't be going through this problem. But he took 3 of his fingers off. It's too late now, you know, but That's one thing that you want to look for. And if you get a machine and it's got safety, I mean, there's some safety precautions that may be a little bit overboard to some people, but it's there for a reason. And so you do want to make sure that your machine, you get light curtains, a lot of safety features with it. There's some of these machines out there that don't come with a whole lot of safety features, and it can cost you a lot of damage and a lot of money, because this is a friend of mine out in Texas. He had a machine and they had their safety features turned off. A guy got his hand in it, and the clamping beam came down, broke his hand, going through lawsuits and all kind of headache that you don't really want to go through. And there again, falling back to the last one, consistency kind of goes with accuracy. So you want a machine that's going to be consistent day in and day out, and it's going to put you a product that you want, that you're happy with, that your clients are going to be happy with. And so just a few things that you want to look for in a trim folder. I know I could have had more, but I kind of limited for time, so just want to move on to the next one. Difference between single folder and double folder. And here again, I know I got guys from metal forming in Sedan, so I don't want to step on anybody's toes, but this is pictures that I had available. So at the end of the day, it's just kind of what I had, and this is what I put together. So I just kind of wanted to show a little difference of, I have a lot of guys coming to me, and they're like, they have no idea what the difference is between a single folder and a double folder. And don't feel bad about that, because I was there at one point in time. And I knew what I wanted in trim, but at the end of the day, I didn't know what the difference was really. And I'd seen them working, and that's about the extent of it. And once I got to doing my research and looking into it a little bit deeper, it's fairly simple, but to some people they miss it. And I don't have a laser pen. I didn't bring that with me, but the top picture is going to be a single folder. The bottom picture is going to be a double folder. There's big differences between the two machines. They will both put out same. I mean, as far as quality wise and anything like that, you can make the same trims out of each one. The difference between the single folder we're starting out is single folder only folds from the bottom up. Double folder folds from the top and bottom. So that's one of the major differences. Another thing that you get out of a double folder, you get to be more efficient. You can put out more product. There's more options. You're getting like back gauge grippers and different things like that. We'll cover that a little later. But just some of the differences that you see there. You see a little bit more detail on a single folder versus a double folder, which is on the next one. And there you see where you got back gauge grippers that will automate your machine a lot more than a single folder, and so it becomes a lot more efficient. And you're not handling material as much, you're not turning and flipping material as much, and so therefore you can speed up your process, put out a lot more product, and with a double folder. But it also comes with a price tag. So you're looking at another $250,000 more for anywhere from $250,000 more, depending on what all options you get on going from a single folder to a double folder. So a lot of guys that comes to shows like this, they're that are asking a lot of these questions. They're newer startup guys, and I think I talked to you guys yesterday, and you guys are from northern Idaho, correct? And most new startup guys, they end up going with a single folder simply because of the price tag. And there's a few far in between that will go with a double folder, and I don't mind selling them. And but at the end of the day, for what you guys are going into, it just makes more sense to go with a single folder and just go into something startup line, get yourself up on your feet, and go from there. And a few years down the road, if you want to upgrade, you can always go to a double folder. But it does have its major advantages by having a double folder. And going on to the next, optional features that you can get on trim brakes. For the most part, a trim brake comes with, it's just a bender, and it'll bend trim. And the standard features that come on a bender is your bender and your software, and pretty much it. You can start tacking different things on like a slitter. Some guys like them, some guys don't. Some guys don't need them. I personally love my slitter, and because as a smaller guy. I was more, mom and pop. I wasn't no Central States or Union corrugating or nothing like that. So a lot of their guys are streamlined to where they have, big slitters like SWIs and different things like that. And they automate everything to where everything is streamlined, and they're not using their slitter as much. I had a lot of clients come in, being I was more into the custom side of bending trim. I had a lot of guys who come in and say, hey, I need 2 pieces of, let's just say, for example, 2 pieces of J trim. And I had some flat stock laying there. I could throw it in, run it through my slitter. I had it on the trim brake, and I could knock it out real quick. Saves a lot of time from the slitter that I had in my location. Was just a set screw slitter that, it takes some time to reset your knives, and where here I can knock it out in a couple seconds. Otherwise it would take me a few minutes to move my slitter, and then I'd have to remove it again. So you get, I personally, my opinion, I love slitters. I love selling. I pretty much push slitters to everybody. I think it's a very useful tool. You can get brush tables on slitters. That's another thing that I think is pretty vital if you're not filming your trim. A lot of guys will film their flat stock, so therefore you don't have that problem. You get a lot of coils from the mill. They'll tend to be, it's hard to see until a few months into production, and you kind of tend to see this mill dust just laying on everything. It just gets all over everything. And it's fine particles or just dust. If you have a gravel parking lot outside and traffic around it, you tend to get dust into your machines, and them little fine particles. And if you have just a metal table, you tend to get that metal against metal, and that's just, me from experience. I've also owned a trim brake that was just the metal plates, and you tend to get light scratches on your trim a little quicker. You can do without it as long as you keep it wiped down, but that's just, it's just another option that you can add to it, but it does help from keeping your trim getting scratched. Extra back gauge grippers that's for double folders only. That's another feature if you're doing a lot of short pieces of trim. Some guys don't want them. Some guys say 10 foot is the minimum that we're going to do. They don't mess with anything less than 10 feet. A lot of guys are into custom trims. They're doing anything from they cut. We had one of our clients that he would order everything, all his trim cut out to length. Window J, everything was 2 and 3, 4 feet, whatever. So we had to have something with a lot of back knives in our single folder, and with extra back gauge grippers, you can get extra back gauge knives on your single folder to where you have more knives to bump your trim up against. Curved clamping jaws. Some machines come standard with just a straight jaw. If you get a radius on your clamping jaw on a single folder, double folders, like us personally, we do not offer a curved clamping jaw on our double folders. I know some, I think Tallman, you guys offer that. Do you guys offer it on your yarns? And it's something that it would be nice if we had it, but we don't. And it's a disadvantage that we have on our folders versus guys like Tallman and Yorns. And it's very, very useful, in my opinion, as somebody that was in the industry, because trims like deep J trims, F and J's, overhead door jams, all that kind of trim that requires that has a lot of depth to it, it tends to crash against the face of your double folder, or any kind of folder that has more of a straight face instead of a radius on the clamping jaw. And so therefore you tend to have overbends and all kind of stuff like that doesn't create the piece of trim that you want. And there's tweaking that you can do to it, but it's only so much. And that's, to me, that's a very useful thing to get on your, it's an extra cost to some companies. I'm not sure about everybody, but it is a very useful tool to a lot of people. And extended insertion depths, a lot of machines come with, ours are standard 39, you can extend it to 49. I'm not sure what you guys' are at, but you can get them, that's for wider flat stock. A lot of more, well, I say in the east, you're running with coils that are 40 and 7/8. You run out west a little bit more into our panel, you're running 43-inch panels. A lot of guys are running 48-inch flat stock coils. And so you're gonna want a deeper insertion depth. So you want something that'll match that a little bit more. So that's another option that you can go with. Trim magazines. I could have added more to this, but like I said, I'm kind of cut for time. And trim magazines to me, there again, that's me personally. I love them. And because I could get a stack of, my guys could get a stack of 150 pieces of J-trim. Stack them on your trim magazines, you just flip them. Instead of reaching behind you on a table and bringing them over here, you keep everything in front of you. And it just becomes, you become more efficient, you become more streamlined, and it's a cheap little thing. And a lot of people can make their own. And I go into a lot of shops, and they somewhere or another bent their own trim magazines. Save you that money. You got the metal. Just rig some sort of a little hook that you can put in the face of. I wish I had my pointer, but I'm just going to reach up here, and they just pretty much go in the face of a seat stand, and it just efficient. Just something you guys be good to think about. This is a subject, 16 gauge versus 18 gauge. There's a lot of differences in that. Me personally, I was in Texas, so I dealt with a lot of 26 gauge. And an 18 gauge machine was not cutting it for me. And because I did not get the clean hems that I wanted, it didn't have clamping pressure. If you're running strictly with 29 gauge, it will work. And but after that, and it will work for 26 gauge. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that it's not going to work. I just didn't like the product that it would put out of a 18 gauge machine. Sorry. And so that's something, depending where you're at, depending on the location. The further west you go, the little harder steel you get. It seems like West Coast has a little harder steel. And in Texas, like I said, I was running with a lot of mostly 26 gauge, very, very, very little 29 gauge. And so I needed something that would bend what I needed, because the last thing you want is crowning on your trim or anything like that, because of not having, and my line for some reason it moved down, but anyways, we just start at the bottom. Stronger clamping pressure, where it clamps down, where it bends your hems. Some guys have, and that's probably the biggest part that we face in an 18 gauge machine is on a hemming, because you're doubling it up. And so at the end of the day, some guys will go with a hammer, and that's totally fine. If you have a hammer and you're bending 26 gauge, 18 gauge machine will do its thing. And it also varies too on what grade you're running with. If you're running with grade 50, a little softer steel, versus grade 80, some guys don't stock both of them. So it just you kind of got to see some of the things that what you really are going to be going with as a roll former. Get stronger hydraulics, and there could be a lot more that goes into it. Just a few things that I just felt like we needed to kind of cover on this. You get extra C-stands, so therefore you get better clamping pressure, you get better accuracy out of your trims. So not much more on that. And this one here is something that I kind of wanted to cover quite a bit. I have a lot of guys that ask me, new startup guys, and can I buy a used machine? Do you have used machines? Do you take trade-ins? Do you have a decent used machine that I can use for for the first 5 years of me being open, just to save me $100,000, for example. And so some of the things that the benefits of buying new versus used, and so some of the things that you want to think about when you're buying a new machine versus a used machine. So we'll cover the new. You're getting better product quality, because you have no idea you can sell a company the best machine in the world, but if they didn't treat that machine very good, if they didn't service that machine at all, like some of these companies do, and not to badmouth anybody, but some of these companies are running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they don't have a whole lot of time to service these machines. They just kind of keep it going. And so you have no idea what that machine was through. They got rid of it for a reason. And one big thing is you don't get any warranty with it. So you have no way of controlling what's going to happen with that machine, and all of a sudden it is an older model. There may not, the parts availability may not be there as good as it is for a new one. Service on it, like I said, there again, it kind of falls into that warranty category. You kind of tend to be treading some different waters when it comes to that, because you may not get the service that you get out of a new one. And we kind of covered machine history. You have no idea where that machine has been, what it has gone through, and also cost. And that's one of the biggest questions that are like, can I save a big chunk of money, that way I can put it for this? I need to buy inventory or something or another. And so that's some of the things that you need to think about when you're buying a new machine. What to look for if you do decide to go with a used machine. And I have no problem. There's a lot of guys that go with used machines and they have good luck out of it, and I'm happy for them. But then on the flip side, we also have a lot of guys that wish they would have never done it. When I went into it, starting out, I talked to a lot of guys in the industry. I knew a lot of the guys I was good buddies with the guys from United Steel Supply for quite a few years, and so. I'd ask them a bunch of questions and things, and when they found out I'm going with a brand new machine, they were like, "Man, you're crazy! Like, what you doing, man? Go buy your used machine." I was like, "No. If I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right." And I know it's a lot more money out of pocket, but at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure that when I started my business, I could put out a product that my customers were proud of. I wanted I wanted good return out of my investment, and so that's why I just never even looked at a used machine. I had no interest in it, and like I said, if somebody wants to buy a used machine, it's good for them, and I hope the best for them. But some of the few things that you look for in a used machine, how are the controls? How's the software? Is it super outdated? Because some of these machines are 20 years old, and from time to time you can get a decent machine. They'll upgrade the software and upgrade the controls, and so you get a pretty good machine out of it. So that's one of the main things, because if you don't have good controls, the machine's not going to work. Condition of the clamping beams. A lot of these can go through the mill. We see a lot of them where companies are not very careful what they put in there. It can be a coat zipper. It can be, I seen one where the guys were trying to bend some trim and they had the trim riveted, 2 pieces riveted, and they slide the rivets in there and clamp it down. Had a guy tell us the other day that one of their employees bent a grade 8 bolt and he was trying to straighten it out with a folder. It'll do a number to a folder like nobody's business. Any little piece of metal that gets into them clamping beams, I don't care how hard you try to make them clamping segments or the clamping beam itself, you're still going to ding it. There's a lot of pressure in them machines, let me just tell you, and it'll tear them things up. So any little ding that you see on a clamping beam, if you're looking at used machines, that's one thing you want to look for, because it will dent your trim, and it'll be on every piece of trim. So super important. Crack C-stands, that can happen from time to time, depending what kind of stress they put them through, because a lot of these C-stands are welded together, so welds can break. And loose hinges, and that happens from a lot of use. Just kind of grab if it's a single folder, just grab that bottom bending beam and just shake it. If there's any kind of slop in that, you can kind of tell a little bit, and you can have a little bit. It is a used machine. It's not like it's going to be a tight brand new machine that you're going to get out of the box. Oil leaks, which that's pretty obvious. If you see a lot of oil leaks around, that's going to raise some red flags. But just some of the few things that I I see day in and day out of guys that, you know, what they're looking for. So, long folder versus short folder. 21 foot versus 10, 13, and 14, anything in between. I like 21 footers and bigger, because anymore the industry has gone to, and I have a buddy of mine in, I don't know, you guys may know him, Jason Norton, down in Florida. I don't know if you guys have run into him or not. Dixie Metals down there. And he strictly runs a 10-foot Roper Whitney in every one of his shops. And I've asked him, I said, what in the world, Jason, why do you run 10 foot? He's like, dude, he said, I don't want to change. I'm like, all right, no big deal. I mean, as long as it works for you, that's totally fine. And he's like, I don't want any customer to come in here. All I do is 10-foot trims. I don't do short. I don't do nothing else other than that. That's all I do. I said, it's understandable. And but at the end of the day, you can, and he's got a huge customer base, and he says, I don't need any more work. He says, I got all the work I need. So it works for him. It works for some people, but for some guys that are starting out, and you need that advantage to get that customer from your other client. Your competition. You need that client to just, you got to have something to impress that guy. And so at the end of the day, you get a 21-foot break and they walk into your shop and they're like, well, one of the first questions that they ask, when I opened my shop up, one of the first questions that they'd ask me, how long can you make your trim? Because my competition down the road had a 10-foot break. And I said, 21 foot. And their eyes got like this big and they said, what? He's like, we'll be buying metal from you guys. That was the first thing they said. And they didn't give a hoot about the pound, as long as they had long trims. And not just that, if you're bending 10-foot trims, if you have a 21-foot break, you double your production, because you can be bending 2 pieces of trim at a time. And so therefore, you're gaining production, you're gaining efficiency, you're increasing your customer base, and you got happy customers. And so at the end of the day, it's a win-win situation. But there's also a good use for 10-foot breaks. There's a place for both of them. And so it's nice to have that little 10-foot break sitting in the corner to just cut, if you got small jobs or different things like that, them things are super efficient. I love them little rascals. But if you're just looking at from a startup standpoint and you can't afford both of them, if you can afford a 21-footer, definitely go with a 21-footer, because you're trying to make a name for yourself straight out the gate. And so it is a lot more money as far as on your investment side of things, but you're winning on the backside. A couple years down the road, you can start stacking little 10-footers here and there, and so there's a place for both of them. And so I just think it's a wide variety of what you can do with it. And so just a few thoughts on that right there. When they asked me to talk about folders and brakes, everybody calls them, one person can walk in the booth and call them a bender, the next person calls them a folder, and the next person calls them a brake. And I don't think nobody knows the difference, and I don't really know the difference in it myself, but supposedly I was in Canada the other day, and that's where I snapped that picture. And one of our clients up there, he's got one of our double folders in there, but I have never seen a machine that will spit out more trim than that crazy little rascal. It's not a little rascal, it's a 90-ton brake, and that's a brake. That's not a folder. Our folders actually fold, so that makes sense. This comes from the top down, and it's one of the most consistent pieces of equipment I've ever seen in my entire life. And I absolutely fell in love with that machine. I'm not even gonna lie to you. And it just kind of, coincidence that they're made here in Cincinnati, but anyways. And I had never seen a piece of, I didn't even know that thing existed. Up in Canada, it's a huge thing. And here in the US, you barely ever see them. And I've never walked into a shop that I know of. I mean, there's bukus of them out there, and I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have ever walked into one that has a lot of these, but up in Canada, everybody has it. It's the weirdest thing ever. Like, I was like, what the world? Because I walked into several shops and everybody's got Cincinnati's up there. But so that's the difference between a folder versus a brake. Just simply break it down. Folder folds, a brake breaks. And so, but super cool pieces of equipment. I mean, them guys can straight crank out some trim out of that machine. And I wish I should have thrown another picture on there of the consistency, because these guys, that's all they have is straight trim shop. They don't roll form, they just have a trim shop. And they will get an order for 5,000 pieces of what do you call that? That snow brake. There's a name for it, and I can't think of it right now. But anyway, I think you guys know what I'm talking about. It's a snow brake that they put up in Canada. They use it day in and day out, and they get an order for 5,000 pieces of that snow brake trim. And so that's all they do. That machine is just there all day long, just bending snow brake. And there'll be a stack this high, and you can barely see them things stacked on top of each other. That's how consistent that machine is. And so, that's something that it could play into your game sometime down the road. You may want to look into a trim brake. I don't know. And so that pretty much concludes what I have today. Any questions you guys got from me? I'd be more glad to try to answer them for you. I don't know. Hopefully I covered it as well as possible. And so just open it up for you guys if you guys have any questions.
What's the big advantage of going longer than 21 feet?
One big advantage is then you can double your production on 12s and 14s if you go with a 28 footer. Guys we got 28 footers in Central States, and they love their 28 footers, and that's what it's for, because they have two operators on that machine at all times, and so they can double their productions on 12s and 14s, and so that, I mean, it kind of makes sense to them, but most guys end up going with 21 footers. You got to go ahead.
What's your opinion on speed versus barrel band versus tone? Hear it both ways.
They're tit for tat, in my opinion. I don't know. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the number of bands. If you have single pump, double pump, it could be so many different things.
There's a lot of difference. I have that question asked all the time, and there's a lot of difference. They're like, well, because I had a guy yesterday that was telling me, he's like, well, I got an 18 gauge Tallman, and I'm like, well, this is not apples to apples. Like, we're talking about the machine we have here is an 18 gauge machine. The one you have the one we have is a 16 gauge. The one you have is an 18 gauge. We can't compare that. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say, oh yeah, Tallman's is way slower. That's not fair to me, because I'm going to be straight honest with you. It's, it all plays into it. Your hydraulic pumps, like you said. If it's an 18 gauge machine, everything gets a little bit more robust on it. And so, I mean, a 16 gauge, sorry. If it's a 16. No, it's a single pump. Our standard is a single pump. It's just a bigger volume pump, and so.
An operator as well.
I've seen guys at it's a shop in North Carolina. It blew my mind the other day when I walked into that place. They got a single folder, and I've seen them guys putting trim out of that single folder faster than guys that can do it with a double folder. It was unbelievable. I mean, I just sat there, like, literally, my jaw dropped. Like, I've been in the production side of things, and I thought my guys were fast. That's nothing. I mean, these guys it was dangerous. It was on the side of being a little sketchy, to be honest with you. And because they were literally bringing, as they were pulling the final product out, the next one was going in. They were like a straight machine. And the clamping beam was coming down as they were pulling out, and the other one was going in. It was unreal to me. I was like, I'm just going to watch one of these guys take their fingers off. But, and they had no safety features on it. And you have to be that fast. You have to turn off all your safety features.
Yeah,
and so yeah.
But what I was talking about was the clamping, up and down clamping. If there's a difference in speed.
I don't know. I mean, and that all depends on your settings too. Some guys want their machine setting, they want it to open 3/4 inch. Next guy wants it to open 3 inches. So there's really no fair comparison there. That's why I don't like to really get into that subject. It's all about what settings you put your machine on. And,
The beams on it, doing sensitive
Yeah.
materials.
yeah, and, so there's so many variables that can go into speed comparisons. I personally don't like to even get on that subject because it's.
But they're all fast and they can all be very efficient.
They're all fast. They're all good machines. I'm not gonna lie to you. And they're all very good machines, and they're all very fast. And also, like, I'm not sure about y'all's machines. I've never messed on the backside on the software, but which I'm sure they are. You can go in there and turn them up, turn them down, whatever speed. You know, if the owner of the company, you know, decides, hey, I want safety first, turn that volume down, and it slows the machine down. So, you know, there's so many variables that can, I wish I could tell you, but I don't even like to get into that war because it's just, there's so many things that can come into play on that, so. Any other questions? If not, we'll conclude with that. If there's any other questions that you have that you think of, I'm gonna be down at my booth, and I appreciate you guys coming out. And so, yeah, there again, my name's David Chavarria, so there's my phone number if you guys ever needed to have any questions or anything. And like I said, just because I'm with Vario Bandits doesn't mean that I'm the only company out there either. So I like to work with everybody, and there's plenty of room for everybody, every one of us to play ball out there. So we all have good pieces of equipment. That's my honest opinion on it. And it's all on your preference. You guys out there, it's y'all's decision. And we can point out whatever we can point out. And at the end of the day, it's y'all's decision, whatever y'all think fits your bill best. And so, but we would be more than glad to answer your question. I'm sure these guys would too. So, we will conclude with this, and we'll head on downstairs. So, appreciate it, guys.